within the state ward you live in? Going once, going twice. All right, moving on. Now we have the emergency manager, management coordinator to review the emergency operations plan.
Yeah, my name is John Kowalski. I live in Beaver for the last, since '84, I guess, and I got a phone call from Dan one day out of the blue, said, "Hey, would you mind being our coordinator?" I said, "How hard could it be?" You know? Well, I should have looked into it. I've got 40 years experience with safety, basically. I worked at safety at the nuclear power plant. I helped write the emergency procedures, and Tom left me from there. I transferred to Bruce Mansfield, that's why I no longer on coal now, and oil and gas. Started my own company in 2018, Safety Performance. If you need any help, let me know. But how hard could this job be? I thought, you know, it was quite a challenge. By the way, I'm certified in safety and risk assessment. So I looked at this job very seriously and went through the federal government standards, the state government standards, and all the standards. I found out the Beaver plan wasn't updated since 2018. And by law, it's supposed to be updated every 2 years, especially if your borough council changes. So I started in a deep pit. I checked all the boroughs around here. I checked with the county. I checked with Center Township, with Brighton Township, Blackhawk. And the first call I got was from Jessica House from Beaver Area School District. She wanted me to help her write a school emergency action plan. That's another piece of work. 8 hours involved in that, looking at College Square, high school, and Dutch Ridge at the same time. So we're not done with that yet. And when we're finished with that, we'll attach that to this plan. So we'll have a good school plan if something bad happens there, and a good plan for the borough. I can't tell you the amount of hours I got read on this thing. My wife knows about it. She wouldn't do that. Anyway, we emailed you I told you there's federal, Pennsylvania, county, and then borough. Everyone's got a plan. And I thought, well, it's so messy. And we sent you the FEMA plan. And I brought 10 copies of the summary. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but this was emailed to you, and you should know that Pennsylvania has a handbook for municipal people like yourself, and a lot of reading.
Thank you.
I got 2 copies I gotta get. Oh, sorry. You got 1 copy there? I'll steal one from Bob. Bob's my communications coordinator. He's also a fire department member. I do. You don't? Okay, I think I have one here. I thought I counted 10. I guess I didn't.
John,
Share one.
Here, we got 2.
John, I got 2. I got 2.
Oh. Thank you.
Hey, I thought I made 10. So this FEMA document, I highlighted what municipal elected officials should do. It's loaded with shoulds, you know, and some counties have a full-time emergency management coordinator. Some bigger municipalities do. This is almost a full-time job, but I offered to volunteer to help anyway with the things again. It was a lot of work, and I just want you to take a look at this document because it is a requirement under law that we have such a document, emergency plan. So I went through the emergency plan, and Dan asked me to put a 2-page summary together. So I offered to put a 2-page summary for Dan. So we don't have to pick the whole document. Yeah, keep up, I promise. That's good. Okay.
So John, one thing I can say that John was very thorough. He spent dozens and dozens, probably a few hundred hours pulling this together from when the fire department, when Jim Carini had it previous, and it needed updated and overhauled. It was just finding the right person, and
Yes.
John did one heck of a job for the borough.
I appreciate it, yeah.
No, you did.
I'm a retired fireman, by the way. I was president of the fire department, and Bob was too. You're still in the fire department, I believe.
Yeah, I'm not president anymore.
With this summary I put together today, I promised Dan I'd do this today. It gives you the purpose of the plan under the Emergency Management Services Code 35. And you know, we see a number of hazards here, mainly flooding, maybe hazardous material, but not like we used to. I have to thank Dan for that. You know, I didn't know this until I took this job, but Dan got rid of gaseous chlorine at the water plant, replaced it with sodium hypochlorite. That's a fantastic move. We did the same thing at the power plants, so we don't have that Sarah stuff and all the hazardous chemical stuff. So it took us off the list. So it was deleted from the plan, the chlorine stuff. So there's also a resource manual which got a lot of confidential information in it, and we're not going to distribute that. It'll be part of the plan. It's got your council members in there and things like that. There's the Beaver elected officials really, you know, you decide when we activate the plan. You're responsible for the protection of the lives of citizens. Your main purpose there, in 4 phases of operation: prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. And I think this plan would cover all that. Whenever possible, we'll follow the National Incident Management System. It's called NIMS. And NIMS is based on 4 levels of action. The first level is the minor level. It's a cooking fire, stove fire. Call for stove fire, fire department comes in, puts it out, done deal. That's it. Okay, minor event. A lot of our events in Beaver, and I was part of the fire department, were minor events. Once in a while, we'll get a level 3 event. Beaver, level 4 event's a minor event. A level 3 event is, it goes beyond the local fire department. You might have to bring Bridgewater in, or Brighton Township. The Fubio fire that I was involved in is a good example of that. I was in that fire, fighting that fire. And that would be a level 3 event. With the counties on notice that we might need more help, but there's more than one fire department there. Now, a level 2 event, that's when we expired all our resources. We used Vanport, we used Chippewa, we used Brighton Township Fire Department, we got major fire, major house fire, maybe 2 homes. So we had involved the county now. So the more we involve outside resources, the higher the event. So that would be a level 2 event. A level 1 event would be like the courthouse fire. You remember that? I don't remember that, but around for that. But something huge like that, or a active shooter did. You'd be involved with the state and the federal people. That's on everyone's mind in there. So that would be a level 1 event. Now, if you look at the opposite side, this is what the Emergency Operations Center would look like. Now, the existing Emergency Operations Center is in the fire department. It's upstairs in the meeting room. It's all staffed. It's got the binders in there. It's got 10 of these binders for each of the emergency action people. It's got a binder for all these levels. If you're Bob here is the communications officer under operations section, he would get a binder. So every officer listed in this EOC would get a binder. Now the ones in yellow would be the first responders. The EOC manager, which would be me or Tom probably, or the president. The public information officer, I can't remember who that is. But we've got people assigned from the fire department. We've got a safety rep and I can't remember his, John Stuck. We've got a liaison for the states and the counties. We've got an operations section. Communications would be Bob, which is a big part of responding to an event. The firefighting folks, that would be Dave Mears, Jim Mears. Public safety, again, John Stuck. And public health would be the county. So I put in yellow the minimal. Now, as it escalates from a level 4 to a level 3, 2, and 1 event, you would add those positions in the dotted line. See within the dotted line, those positions will be added. I was shell shocked when I looked at this, because I thought I needed all the positions all the time. So I had to simplify this, say how it escalates when you need these things, these additional people. My biggest fear all the time is a train derailment, something like what happened at, East Palestine, you know? That would be a level 1 event, and we would need more assistance on the way. So that's basically the plan. This plan is, I put in the plan that you can copy this plan, and I think it's towards the last page of the plan. I said some of this information are not considered available to the public, and the right to know law does not apply, especially the National Notification and Resource Manual. That's in the plan. So we don't have somebody take off with this personal information. So Dan and I worked on the law.
No, John did a bang-up job and brought us up to where we needed to be. The problem is a lot of municipalities, the emergency management people, they come and go. You know, they get transferred, they come in, and you'll have, you know, somebody that, you know, brings us up to where we need to go, and then we kind of sit idle. We still do the bare minimum with county, with the upgrades and keeping everything where it needs, but this plan here has had a complete overhaul that we haven't had in probably 25 years.
Yeah.
We just, you know, Mr. Perini did a great job, as some of the other firemen that did, you know, Ray Grosskopf, but didn't have the level of knowledge and expertise that you did
Right.
to bring this all together. And we really appreciate it. You put the borough in a really good spot.
In fact, I eliminated 10 pages.
Yeah, you did that too. One thing,
Superfluous stuff.
one thing I do want to point out, if you look at this document here that everybody has, if you go to page 5, I think page 5 is probably one of the very most important. And it's the very first few sentences. Elected or appointed officials are ultimately responsible for protecting residents and those visiting the jurisdiction. Residents and visitors expect reasonable level of protection, and so on and so on. Read it yourself, but ultimately, that falls in and it costs money. It costs money to have your safety, whether it be fire, whether it be the police. But when you have these large-scale events, the car crews, and you have these things, the level of safety, that's ultimately what this falls, because, you know, John's talking train derailments, but you get 10,000 people here for a car show, and you get somebody that decides to drive through a crowd, all this applies.
Oh, yeah.
All this applies.
Absolutely.
You have an explosion, you don't know, there are other places that are set up with multiple explosions. So there's a lot of moving parts, and when you want to invite that many people into your town, you have the borough, the municipality has a responsibility to provide safety. Police,
Absolutely.
fire, and everything, you know, everything as a whole, so.
Absolutely. I talked to school a lot about
Yeah,
prevention,
yeah.
a lot about prevention, that we talked about metal detectors eventually at schools.
Yeah,
They're looking into that.
and also too, talking to Jess, a lot with the school district and the SROs, they were very complimentary too, that the level of, you know, professionalism, expertise, and knowledge that John's brought to the school district, because the school district was doing a bang-up job. They had their action plans in place, but John's taken their action plans to another level
Yeah.
in the positive light, because they only had so much knowledge and expertise. So John brought not only that to the borough, but he also brought that within the school district as well.
It got people thinking more about prevention as well when the
Yes.
event happens. You know, how do we prevent that
Right.
from happening? How do we engage the students? How do we talk to the students about
Yep.
what's going on? You know?
Yeah.
That's been interesting.
Huh?
I found Center Township, though, had a very good school
Plan.
plan.
Yeah.
They have a lot of schools too in the center.
Yeah.
Blackhawk was pretty good too. Yes, sir?
Are you aware if this year or next year we're going to be doing the new plant drill? And if so, do you know the dates?
I think it's this year.
Okay, because that, for council's information, it's one of the, it is the only thing we've done in the county
Yeah.
for several decades.
You're
Every
right.
other year we do it. It's the only way to do a live action drill where everybody's involved, from municipalities to the county level to the state level. And it's basically a drill pretending that the new plant is having a meltdown or something. But councils in the past have actually participated, at least gone down to the EOC and the only thing that we've done that actually implements this in a manner in which you can critique it and everything. Other than that, it's only been activated when we've had large-scale events.
I think we had one event that wasn't nuclear, Dan, I can't recall,
I
if it was an active
participated in
shooter or
that.
something.
Yeah,
Did we have one with the county?
yeah, they do the live tabletops, where they actually,
Yeah.
they'll
Yeah.
actually call in and,
But usually that's just the leaders of the critical agencies. The one thing about this is on a town-to-town basis, your council people can take part in it and observe it, so that they get a full understanding of it.
yep.
So, there have been a couple incidents whereby, for instance, the chemical fire over in Rochester.
Oh, I remember that.
Okay, and then also when they had the accident down at the Shell plant, and they released a lot of toxic material into the atmosphere. Social media was able to provide information more quickly than any of the official channels were. So there was a lot on social media. How do we try and bridge that gap to make sure that we give correct information, maybe before the county's willing to say something? With the Shell plant, we were waiting for DEP. However, DEP was waiting for the Shell plant to actually do an investigation, and that didn't take place for days after everything was
Somebody
released.
inside that Shell plant texted people,
Right,
and that's how it
exactly.
got on social media.
Yeah, and the
So
Marcellus
that's how
group,
it-
the Marcellus group spread it very far and wide after that.
Well, I'm
But-
saying that, I'm just saying, the entities involved with that, they have to be careful. They can't just start reporting on something unless they have all the facts.
I understand that, but I'm just.
Unfortunately, but what you said was somebody, I'm just giving you information that I
Right,
know,
right.
Peggy. I know that you get irritated when I talk to you about this, but at the same time, it was somebody on the inside that reached out to social media, and that spreads like wildfire.
But
We
you
have the
are-
same thing
You are
happening
an
at the school.
emergency coordinator, so how do we, as elected
I don't know what
officials,
I'm talking about.
deal with social media events, or social media
We-
discussions of these events, and we have nothing to say yet?
The plan calls for a public information officer to be in the EOC. And that public information officer would control rumors and any media and inquiries. So that public information officer that's in the plan, it's in our EOC, would have to work with the county and the states and everyone else to make sure.
And who is that in our system?
Public information officer?
I mean, who is that?
It's gonna depend on what the
If it's a
incident
county
is.
wild thing, it's gonna be the county.
If it's an incident, police incident, that's
Yeah,
gonna
right,
be
right,
somebody.
right. But that wouldn't have been a police incident.
I can speak to that. To what you're saying, I participated with Duquesne Light on these drills for the nuclear, and that's when I probably first met John over 30-some years ago. And one of the positions is the public information officers, and what they do is the rumor control. And I think what we're saying is, that's very important that we don't do the social media. You don't go to that social media, that's the whole point of having this plan, that we do it the right way. And I'm not gonna speak for Shell, but that doesn't sound like that was the right way to do it.
No, somebody got on social media.
And that's
reported it,
that's
yeah.
absolute, when we'd sit at these drills, and I was specifically given rules, we all worked as a team, and that's what you don't do. And in fact, there was even a thing where someone said rumor control, and that's what that would have been, a rumor. And that was the thing, they didn't wanna send they don't wanna send anything out till it is
Right.
approved and official. And we don't wanna go down that route. I know you wanted to do that the last time, but
Well,
we can't do that.
There's no rumor, when you can smell it outside
No,
your own home,
that's-
it's no longer a
It would be
rumor.
the stream of any disaster. You have to have this procedure in effect.
So John, would you agree, John, if there's a major event and we're working in partnership with the county and feds, that it wouldn't be appropriate for just one of us to go out
Oh,
and say,
absolutely.
everybody releases a
Absolutely.
unified statement, so you know, I've been part of these, I'm just telling you, that's how it works.
And I have been part of these at the federal level. So,
Okay.
and we also have public information officers, but we didn't have that before. We were relying on the county, the 911 call center for the Rochester fire. We were relying on Shell and DEP for the other incident. And we had days where there was material in the air, and we weren't saying anything.
For some reason,
So I'm glad to know that there's somebody that I can call and say, hey, this is all over social media, what are we supposed to say?
as
So
I'm
you're
glad
not
to see
supposed to
that.
speculate, number one.
as a
So
council.
you're gonna
Yeah.
answer for the county then? If
No,
somebody calls you,
no.
that's what I'm saying.
Jennifer is going to
Yeah, but
be,
she's gonna have to wait until she gets that information.
and that's
That's
fine,
right.
maybe she can get that information and be
And I'm
able to
sure they
release
would put
something
it
to the
out.
public sooner.
As a council member, you're entitled to come to the EOC. I work for you, basically. Huh. Jennifer works for you. So you.
Yeah, and in fact, all the councils invited to these drills, I participated on both ends, the company and as well as the drill. And then it's hard to get people to attend these from the council, but it's very important that we do follow this procedure and not go our separate ways.
No, I understand that it's, in the days of social media, it's it's a lot more difficult for us to
Well,
sort of
it-
thread the
it-
needle between what is being broadcast on social media and what the official
But
party
even
line needs to
before
be.
social media, that was the case.
Well, it's,
So what is the official communications plan when we have an event?
Depends on the time of it.
Yeah.
Depends what the event
Depends
is.
what the event, so for example,
So
2
that's-
years ago, there was a swatting incident at every school district in western Pennsylvania and a lot throughout the United States, that there was gonna be an incident occur at each school. We couldn't put anything out there until we got word back from not only local police, but they had state police in on it, and then they had FBI on it, to make sure that it was not a credible threat, which it wasn't. But we couldn't say that it was or it wasn't until we got the word from those entities. Now, we got it
Can I
back
ask the
pretty
question
quick.
a different way? Sorry.
Well, I'm just saying,
No, because I'm not talking hypothetical, I'm actually, so there's an incident that has happened.
well, that was an incident, right,
Let me just finish, if you don't mind. So, I mean, I went through this in New York City in 9/11. So when 9/11 happened, there was in my company, there was a phone tree and a communication channel, a communication plan that went out to all emergency team leads and other corporate executives. Then we had roles we had to play. So that's all I'm asking, is there a phone tree for all of us
so in an
when we
incident.
have official information
Yeah,
to share?
so the
Great.
incident, like I'm talking, for the school district, it's with the local police. Local police are talking to probably county. County's probably talking to state, and then state's talking to federal.
Is there a phone tree to council that we all get information in a consistent way so that we all know what we're doing and how
I
to
have all,
take action?
I have all the council's members' names.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
phone numbers and emails,
That's
that's what
all
we're not releasing, and that's not
That's
privileged
all
or
the
right for
EOC.
that.
Right.
That's fine, I'm
yeah,
just
it's
asking if that would be,
Yes.
so what I heard
Yeah,
John say, I wrote it down, was, wait, where did I write it?
communications officer.
Prevention, preparedness, reaction, recovery.
Right,
So we have a role, took us to page 5, we have a role
that's right.
in all of that.
Yes.
So Peggy's question is a good one, but just, I'm just sort of trying to,
Oh, you have a role,
reframe
but we have to be careful we follow this plan. I will say, when you go to those drills, whether it be at the borough, or whether it be at Duke Night, or First Energy, or Energy Harbor, there's no press thing goes out with going through a whole chain of command.
Oh, yeah.
And it's signed, and then at the end of the day, the information officer is allowed to send it out to the press, and the press are right there.
Yeah.
But you gotta, that's the other thing you have to be careful with, you don't want people talking to the press, just,
No.
exactly.
On social media, it's-
But that's all part of this plan. It is a good plan, I think John's done a great job on this.
Mhm.
This plan is standardized throughout the entire United States, from
That's
local, county, state, federal.
We're not reinventing the
And
wheel.
it changes depending on the severity of the incident, who ultimately becomes the jurisdiction. So it could begin on a local level, and it could be handed off to each successive
Excellent.
agency that comes. And so what information is dispersed is based on who ultimately is in charge.
And I will say, we
Makes
all
sense.
get graded on this, whether it be the state, federal.
And it changes,
Yeah.
because most situations are ever evolving, like 9/11 was, and it just keeps going up, and up. So ultimately,
John is a very modest person, but his credentials are off the charts.
Thank
As far as the nuclear plant, you've been
Thank you.
there over 40 years.
Yeah.
You
Thank
were
you.
fireman and retired with the utmost knowledge of this
Thank you.
plant. So we're very fortunate to have John do this.
I appreciate it, thank you.
And a lot of places wouldn't have anybody that could do this type of.
Where do you get my bill?
Okay. So, thank you for
Good
all
luck.
the hours.
Good luck on that one, sir.
John, thank you, great job, thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks to Bob, too.
Bobby,
Yes, thank you.
He volunteered. That's all I'm getting so far. Everyone else stepped back and he was in front.
Any other questions or thoughts? Great. All right. Beaver County Regional Council of Governments.
Thank you. I have included the January and February minutes, the less than anticipated minutes to the COG meetings. I apologize for not having March's in, but that means it doesn't happen until this Thursday, so I'll get those in. We did have the last meeting in the pool house, and it was a little.
You have to keep these.
John, those go back, those are the ones that are,
Yeah,
those aren't for
yeah,
public
yeah.
dissemination, so Margaret, that one there,
That
that goes back to John.
Back, I'm gonna put your.
Sorry about that.
I'm gonna put the council members on the back.
Yeah.
She works at the,
Peggy, the stuff that's in there is not for public
I
dissemination.
understand.
You do, I'm sure you do.
You're from the county?
All right,
Can we move on, please? Go ahead, Alex.
thank you. Yeah, we did have it at the pool house, and it is, I'm not sure when the carpet is getting, heated that way, but it couldn't happen
It's done,
soon enough, is it?
it's done. They finished it today, it looks great. It did cut down a little bit on the sound.
Get some other stuff, yeah, might need to do some other stuff, because it was
You should,
a little rough for meetings.
yeah, there's a lot of sound in there.
Yeah, and I just to, you know, half the bill was already paid, the other half's coming up, and also too, in the minutes, this was discussed at the Tuesday, February 25th work session. The only one that wasn't present was yourself, but it was discussed multiple times about the carpet, but looks great. As far as the coloration, everything, Abbey Carpet, they sent their people down, and, you know, the money's coming from the festival.
I told the guy, I go, "Look, we're getting a carpet, don't worry, you know what I mean? So,
It actually, it looks, I don't know, I think it looks better
Yeah.
inside, but they did a nice job.
One thing we did discuss at that meeting was, Mr. Hyman asked about insurance
Oh, I'm
for,
sorry. I've done it to
firemen
my sister
and
once.
emergency services.
I could check.
But yeah, and we did discuss that, and actually are planning a presentation on that very subject at our May meeting, and I believe it will also be at the secretaries and managers meeting too, so, we'll have that so forth. And this is April, so that means that there's 5 Wednesdays in April, and every time there's 5 Wednesdays, that means we are having a elected officials training course. So April 30th, will be a training course. I believe we're discussing, sunshine laws. So if anybody's interested, that will be here. And we'll probably have more information on Thursday, and I can disseminate it. Other than that, if anybody has any questions for me, that's my report.
Anyone? All right. Civil service? Anything? Zoning hearing?
Yep, Wednesday, April 30th, 7 PM. It's for the 995 Second Street variance request, attached carport, asking for relief for a minimum side yard setback. So Rick's been working with the staff upstairs and with Dan Martone with that. So it's Wednesday, April 30th, 7 PM, and it's in reference to 995 Second Street.
Seventh or second?
Second Street.
Planning commission?
Some of us attended the planning commission meeting last night, and I agree with what Todd was saying, that we really encourage you to go because they're looking for our input. rather than put this whole signage ordinance together, come and present it, and us then have, oh, we think maybe it should be this way. So if you can, the next meeting is gonna be on May,
Well, I thought it was next, I thought they were
May.
having three meetings in a row.
right, but it'll be May,
Next month.
Yeah.
it'll be
Oh,
next month,
oh,
May.
I thought it was next one. It's the 18th, 19th, I believe, right?
Right, right. So it'll be that Monday, the third Monday of May. So think about it, but it's on signed ordinances right now.
Yeah, we were sitting in that meeting, and at the beginning of that meeting, I was like, when I got started in this, I never thought I'd be sitting in a meeting talking about signs, and I was very like,
You've done
All
it
kinds
before.
of-
yeah, I'm ready to be bored with it, but actually, like, by the end of the meeting, we were all very interactive with it, and it actually got spiced
Yeah,
up
it's
there.
got-
I think quite an enjoyable meeting.
Well, we want that meeting to
Seen
be
that some
open,
signs?
so
Yeah.
people do take part in it.
Yeah, it was
And
good.
we appreciated Todd, Alex, and Roberta for being there.
It was good.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Tree commission? Yep.
You got the Arbor Day notice in the packet, and I was wondering if we could, I know this is gonna take place at the same time as they're doing the cleanup on the ramps, but I think this should be on our calendar as well, on the borough calendar as well.
Thank you. Any questions?
It's Earth Day, happy Earth Day.
Yeah.
Today.
Code enforcement?
Any of my report, any other questions?
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Sprecher for making me look good, because I brought up at a meeting about the telephone pole in front of Dr. Crumline's office, and that very next week, that telephone pole was fixed, and then I also brought up the cemetery bricks, and the very next week, bricks were cleaned up, and, yeah, no, I guess they
Wall's
fixed the whole
almost
thing, so now
It's almost done.
so, I appreciate, in the minutes, it will make it look like I'm a good guy, but, it's actually Rick who did all the work and deserves all the credit, so thank you very much, Mr. Springer.
I appreciate that.
And the cones are gone from the telephone pole on Fifth and College too.
Yeah, that's, well, that was gonna be he stole my
Sorry.
thunder.
There's
Then
still plenty of thunder.
I'll add on to that, Rick, just so everybody knows, has been working on this double pole things throughout our town. We got really behind because of all the infrastructure rehabs by Verizon and Duquesne Light and others, and Columbia Gas, but there was many, many double poles. I know Rick's been working for quite some time to get people to do what they have to do so that they can be pulled out, and now all his efforts are starting to show. There's crews up on Fifth Street putting concrete in, there was on Second Street, they put concrete in and fixed the bricks around that one where we had a resident fall in the hole.
On Second Street, yeah.
I can tell you, Rick took this very serious, he made multiple calls, and I know how frustrating that is to call and not get through, but I talked to him, he says, I talked to so-so, and I know he kept the pressure on, and he got it done. It's not done, there's still
There's
some,
a lot to do.
but, there's a lot of project. And you can go around a lot of our communities, and no one would even turn that in and just live with the double poles. So thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Rick.
Thanks, Rick.
Appreciate it.
Historic Architectural Review Board, anything from Harvard?
Alex and I have a meeting on, May 12th with, group, Steve McGrew, Val Burgich, and Chuck Copeland. We'll get back to you.
Municipal Authority? Anything? Pool Committee?
They actually canceled the last two meetings because of the lack of, they still working without the meetings, and there was a, update included in the packet, so in case there's any questions on that, that's all I have for an update.
All right. Council committees, finance?
All right, so, we are gonna talk through the Q1, budget recap. You meeting, which was the closeout numbers for the quarter, so that is the final report. No change, oh. Phone is completely recording what I'm saying. It's weird.
That's all right. Everybody else does.
I was going to, my business partner, so I'm sure she doesn't wanna hear that. The way I'd like to do this, and this is the first time we're doing it, so, it's a dry run here, but what you wanna do is pay attention to, the budget, Jan to March 25 number, and then the budget, and the over-under on those numbers. The good news is that we are on track to slightly ahead for Q1. Our expected income was just over 1.5 million for the quarter, and the actual came in closer to 1.7. So we actually have an increase there of $152,000, and I'll talk for a minute about where that comes from. Our expenses were expected to be at 1.2 million, and they're actually at 1.2 million, just a $34,000 difference. Which brings our net income up higher than expected. We had a net income of $319,740, and it came in actually at $437,741. So we have a net income differential of $118,000, which is good, and there's some clear reasons for that. So again, just keep in mind, this is the first quarter. It is the quarter where we generally have light income until tax starts to flow, and that tax revenue has started to flow. And so our increase in net income is primarily driven by the real estate property tax. That's line 301.000. It's just coming in a bit faster than we had in our budget, so that makes up about $95,000 of the excess income for the quarter. Additionally, local taxes, so that's business privilege tax, the mercantile tax, and the earned income tax also have come in a bit higher than anticipated at about $113,000. But these were offset by some lower than expected income in 3 areas. The mercantile and business licenses we didn't have any registered income from that this quarter. In talking with Andy about that, it's just hard to estimate when those will come in. They're dependent upon when the business's licenses renew. So it will come, it just didn't come in Q1. The community center, the pool house rental income was off by about $12,000. And Dan shared that he's had some conversations with the train house team, the train station team, and just Pam has actually had feelers out about reservations. It does look like this quarter was a slow quarter for many of the kind of rental properties around the county. We also have made some investments. Dan just talked about the carpet, I'll get to that, but a couple of things that we've done. We've invested a little bit more money in the pool house in Q1 to improve the rentability of the place, so we think that's going to help, and in fact, we've already seen an uptick in reservations. Yeah.
I've had a couple questions / complaints saying that they think that we're charging too much. I don't know if that's something that your mother has heard or anybody else has heard, but a couple people said that they didn't rent it because they thought that it was higher than what they could get elsewhere for something similar. I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, you're accurate in what you said. There was a couple people that got back to Pamela, got back to the borough, to the staff, but they didn't rent there, but they got a fire hall for $125. So if they went from here and they get a fire hall, if you want a fire hall with wooden chairs that only, that's so.
I'm just passing on what I'm.
I've heard the same thing.
We're in year 1, so
Yeah.
I think, we needed to test out pricing and test out kind of
Yeah.
capacity, and that's what we're learning, so.
Yeah, there's, but also too, talking to different people with the train station, they were up in a 3 to 5 year range before they saw any type, trying to get their feet under them, so. I'm proud of the staff and proud of everybody that's coming together. The school district's using it a good bit. It's becoming a hub, and that was the goal for 5 years from now and 10 years from now. Not an immediate, we're not the Fez, nor are we the Holiday Inn, where we have cookie cutters and hundreds of these, and we did the best we could for the community, and I think it's gonna take some time, probably long after I'm gone, and I think you're gonna see the turn to where it's just a constant hub for different community events, and that's what we're starting, to see now. Like, as far as, there's 46 paid for 2025, there's already 7 for 2026, and there's several pending events, people to rent, but there's 46 that are paid for 2025. Starting here in the next probably few weeks, straight through till fall, every weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, just rented straight through. So it's gonna take some time. Some people come there for an event, and they're like, wow, I didn't even know this was here. So it's just taking some time to get it out there. So anyway, sorry.
I think that's good, that's great. I think there's, some marketing that could be done just to push it out on social
Sure.
media and get some free coverage of it out there. Cool. So the other, income that came in is down under miscellaneous revenue at 360.000 at the bottom of page 2, 1, 3, the first page of the big report. And that is just, miscellaneous income that comes from various sources. So it's not a major issue to be concerned with, because it will show up later in the year. In terms of expenses, if you keep moving down through the report, so that pretty much takes you down through income, and then if you move through into expenses, really our expenses remained well contained. So, having now been involved with the budget for a few years, it is always a bit of I think a masterful shell game, the way the borough manages with Andy and Dan and Colette and Becca, how they manage where they can pull money to pay for urgent issues and urgent items, and at the cost of less urgent issues, and we put certain things on hold, like we kind of at work session that we worked through back in December, or maybe that was November. But there were a few sort of notable expenses. Most of the kind of overages did have to do with the wintry weather that we had and the increased cost with maintaining and upkeeping the borough. Just the cost of goods and services are going up. I don't see any relief in that. But there's a few things. So if you go to 410.000, the police budget overall came in slightly over, just by about $9,000. And while it was driven primarily by materials and supplies and some unexpected uniform expenses, which was actually a clerical error, the overage was contained by a major reduction that you can then see in the part-time and overtime costs. So some of the expense increase happened because we hired, and that's why part-time and overtime has gone down. So we expected that, now you're just seeing it in the numbers. You see that also in police miscellaneous expenses, right below that at 410.001. So you see an overage of $36,000, which has to do with healthcare plan and workers' comp numbers going up because of the add to staff. And then lastly, there were overages across the board, just driven by the cost of goods and services, like I said. I know the team is being as scrupulous as possible to find the lowest prices and buy in the right volume. But like the salt issue, which we talked about way back in January, we were already at well over 50% of our salt supply was depleted, and we weren't even halfway through the winter. So that, concrete, things like that are just rising costs. Okay. So we're keeping an eye on all of that. If you keep moving down, the highway department, so 30.000, that's on the next to the last page. And highway miscellaneous both came in under, so that helped offset some of the cost, and that is because of the reduced workforce that we have there. And that was captured in line items such as the healthcare plan and public works. And then we were able to keep costs for recreation, that's 454.000 under, primarily in the materials and supplies line item. And really just, that's, again, goes back to kind of shifting monies around, like the festival budget came in to help pay for some of the pool house costs that we just talked about. So some of those pool house costs that you'll see in there at the very bottom are really about adding lighting that had been ordered in 2024 but came in 2025. The sound absorption, carpeting, and then some kitchen upgrades for just adding a warming station and things like that. So this was based on year one renter feedback, and we all believe that's going to help improve the desirability of the rental. So like Dan said, we're already seeing a full docket of events scheduled for the next 4 months. Almost every weekend is booked, and then already 7 events booked for 2026. So those were the major flags in the budget to look at. This was a very good exercise. I think what we'll do now is we'll go through Q2, Q3, and Q4 and comb for adjustments based on the impact of what we saw in the actuals in Q1. So I think we should formalize this process and keep it going. Any questions on that before I talk about the some of the cash reserves? I just wanted to share some cash reserve information with you guys. No questions? Awesome. So, we've all heard from residents some of the feedback about the tax increase, and in particular just that it was a large number and wondering why it couldn't have been doled out over time. And so Dan and the team did an analysis that I want to share with you, which is it's actually proving out exactly what we needed to have happen. So as you know, we agreed to raise taxes to refill our cash reserves and our contingency and our capital fund so that we can protect the borough from unexpected costs, whether it's an emergency such as the hillside or increased costs that are now happening because of the impacted supply chain and slowing economy that we are seeing. But the analysis that was done took a look back over 4 years, and the cash balances on hand as of March 31st. So in 2022, we had $1,142,000 cash balance on this date. In the capital fund, we had $321,000, and that included the ARPA funds, which meant that we had an operating capital of $821,000. So that was the best last year. 23, while we had a cash balance that was higher of $1,263,000, our capital fund was at $579, and that was also including the increased ARPA funds, which meant that we only had an operating capital of about $684,000 at that time. Flash forward to last year, we had gone through the hillside, the pool house, other expenses with the cost of goods and services starting to go up last year. Our cash balance on hand on March 31st was only $688,000, and our capital fund was only $52,000. So that meant we had an operating capital of $636,000, which for a town of our size with a $5 million budget, that is very low. So that red flag is what led to the recommendation for the tax increase. And now, where we are today, we have a cash balance of $972,000. Right now we have zero in the capital fund, but that's going to change after we work through the rest of where we were in 2022. So there's a couple of things that everybody needs to remember though about this, because remember that November through February, we are in a very cash tight situation as a borough. So this year, we need to make some payments to offset the prepayments from the municipal authority out of that operating capital to the tune of $360,000. So that leaves us right now with a projected operating capital of $612,000. Sorry, this is a lot of numbers. But $612,000 puts us in right where we were for the last 2 years, and we should see additional income coming in from the taxes. Now remember, our recommendation is that we should have about a 15% contingency fund, 10 to 15% contingency fund, which you see is actually in the budget right now. That on a overall budget of $5 million is between $500,000 and $800,000. So once we get the prepayments kind of repaid back to the municipal authority, then we will work on moving money into the capital fund, and you'll have a cleaner picture of all of that at that time.
Is there any way that we can get a hard copy of this?
Yeah, I mean, that should have been included in the council pack and everything, because we're just projecting numbers to us at this meeting, we had no way to
Well,
review them.
and again, the finance, we just had this conversation, Andy's traveling, so he wasn't available. So this conversation took place yesterday with Andy at 4 o'clock. So thank you to Amy and Todd for pulling that presentation together. They pulled that together since yesterday. So I agree with what you're saying about tonight, but Andy was hinging on this, and we weren't able to get anything set up with Andy because of the holiday until yesterday at 4, so.
I mean, these meetings are scheduled a year in advance, so we all have to get our reports in.
Everybody has had this for a
I
month.
mean, we didn't go over anything that wasn't in this.
So
Everything's been in
the
this.
agreement was, everybody would take a look at this, come to the table with any
We had this
questions.
last meeting.
All I was doing was telling
Well,
you
we've
what.
had that every year we've had that. That hasn't really changed everything, we've
Yeah,
always had that.
We've never had anything extra other than
no,
this.
I mean, this is an accountability exercise, guys.
Yeah.
Like, the reason why we're doing this is because it became evident that every month when we ask, is there any questions about the treasurer's report, everybody says no.
Right.
So now I've answered all the questions that hopefully you have, but I encourage everybody to read through this budget and ask questions.
Amy, I do want to, one of the things I wanted to mention is in 2023, 2024, we could not raise taxes because of the reassessment. Otherwise, that probably would have been done, but we knew going into that, that those 2 years were going to be.
We're already at, we
Yes,
could
so
raise
right.
taxes anyways, we were already at our,
Maxed out.
we're maxed out.
Right, we did that because we knew we were gonna have 2 years where we could not raise taxes and we weren't gonna be able to sustain the fund balance.
But I think something that's really interesting, and this came up through a conversation with the residents and the taxes and stuff. Taxes were raised 9 times in 29 years. So think about that. When you see all the zeros, how could you run a business? Amy, you do that. I mean, if you don't raise the cost of your goods, whether you're a donut shop or whatever you do, at the end of the day, stuff goes up. I get that. Everything goes up. Whatever your business is, you build birdhouses, lumber goes up, nails go up, everything goes up. And when I'm talking with the resident, the borough has the same expenses that you have. You have electricity. We have, $6,000 to $8,000 just to keep the street lights on every month. So your bills went up, but our bills went up too. Yeah. I mean, and again, I'll jump on. Andy wanted me to pass along to council, and now's probably the proper time to do it because again, he's not available by phone right now. He's traveling. That Andy uses the word kudos. Kudos to all the council for making a tough decision. He said, yeah, you guys raising the taxes, your own money came out of your own pocket. So it's not like you live somewhere, and pass it on. You guys got hit and affected with, some of you own rental property. It hits you even extra harder. But Andy said he was pleased yesterday. I talked to him again this morning when he got cell reception, that you're starting to see the fruit of what's going on. And, the misinformation, what are you gonna do with the $1 million laying around? There is no $1 million. If you took time to listen and digest what's being said, By the time the municipal authorities pay back their $360 and everything happens, we're gonna be right back. Next year, we'll start to see, but again, we have paving we wanna do, we got the playgrounds, we got things to do. But again, when you raise taxes only 9 times in 29 years, hopefully, long after I'm gone, and a lot of you from council, that the future councils 5 and 10 years from now, take that little bite of the apple and just do some slight increases, not all the time, just here and there to keep us with pace, so this never has to happen again with a large, with a large increase. But Andy, he was really pleased that you two were engaged. As you know, I got off after 45 minutes because I had another obligation, but I'm not sure how much longer you guys were on. But Andy, today when I talked to him, was energized because he finally got a chance to sit down and look at these numbers, and it's exactly the plan that was 6 months ago and 8 months ago, and all the arguing. You're starting to see like it's putting the borough in a really good spot to where we have the reserves, all of our infrastructure's solid, and we're able to start taking care of business and getting money banked up, so we have a rainy day fund. Because right now, then again, Murphy's Law, this could change 2 weeks from now. We could have some goofy something happen, and we could be given this next report and say, well, this happened, and we, hopefully it doesn't, but, but Andy wanted me to pass, and things are really trending, especially with the police, meaning on the numbers and the wages. Again, it's gonna take, probably like you said, I think the next quarter report is really gonna
it'll
shape.
kind of
Yes.
balance out, and then
Yes.
we'll see,
So Amy, where is the prepayment to the municipal authority? I don't see that in this.
In the line item,
Thank you.
I know where it is, hold on. He might,
Is this
let's see,
intergovernmental?
some of that came in
It's in the form of, it's payroll.
2024, so
Yes.
and in 2025, so it will be in the payroll lines,
Oh,
yeah.
no, I was thinking it might be intergovernmental.
No, that's the
No.
contracts with, but yeah, the prepayment is just strictly in the wages of the municipal authority. They front-loaded payroll to cover, so the borough didn't have to do the tax anticipation loan. So now that we
Right.
have the money, we're covering the municipal authority. So it was worked with the solicitors, the municipal authority board, and that's how that was. That's why we're on the hook for their payroll
Right,
up to 360.
right, but I
Yeah.
just wasn't sure where that was in this document.
It is
It's in
only
there.
in the payroll line items,
Okay.
because that is the appropriate way to report it.
Yeah, it's not, there's no fronted money, it's just now the payroll, they're sitting idle as the payroll, which you,
Right, which that's fine, it's
Right.
not, it hasn't depleted their payroll or their budget, it's,
no, they just front-loaded it.
yeah, it's just a transfer.
Which, we were very fortunate that the municipal
Very.
authority was expedient and gracious enough to assist to get us over that hump. And again, that was a projection that Andy had along with Amy and Todd, and grinding it out back and forth, and was the 4 prepayments of that amount, and we didn't need a fifth. It was getting close, but for some reason with escrows and different things, the taxes came in a little bit early, and we didn't have to, it was like every day Colette's just shaking, checking things, and we got lucky. But again, we held the line, and so what we said we were gonna work out with them is we hit that right on target. So there's a lot of thought put into it.
It's very well orchestrated, it's another testament to how well the office runs upstairs and how well you guys coordinate everything.
Don't wanna do that again, I can tell you that.
I bet.
Well, thank you, Dan, Amy, Dan.
Yeah.
Mr. Velo, he was here, I know he was instrumental with that too.
Yeah, I talked with him this morning about it and explained, because he had another obligation, and he asked us, so I gave him a quick rundown, and he was pleased as well.
Any more?
No, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.
Okay.
And I can't remember if Amy said about the police overtime, how that's scheduling, that it's, I mean, it's paying dividends
Yeah.
right off the bat.
Mhm. Yeah, but, and it's anticipated it'll only get better because of the, because we'll have enough for the,
SROs, vacations.
SROs, vacations,
It's wonderful, yeah.
it should work out. Good. General government,
No report except for our meeting and planning commission.
Yeah, thank you for going.
highways, anything?
Yeah, we'll have a report. We're working in a partnership with the municipal authority on two projects. Part of the paving project, Dan Martone and Rick spent some time going around and identifying different roads. And Dan came up with some numbers, and they were in the 250, 270 range, which falls in the paving budget. But like I had a discussion with the finance committee, just because we have that much money doesn't mean we need to spend that much money on the paving. So Rick went around with Dan, they've scaled back from what I got from Dan as a list A, that these definitely need done this year, and then there's a list B that if we have extra money or a little bit, we could dovetail a road or two. So list B got pulled off of list A to reduce our overall cost, so we have a little extra. But also partnering with the municipal authority, when you come up from down over the riverbank, we've been having cars get hung up on the tracks. People are coming around and they think that the road still stays wide. So what we want to do is widen that apron on the riverside, put a white line with arrows, and try to get that to where Dan said there's a way he can bank that to force cars over. So it's a whole engineer thing he figured out. It's like $7,500. I spoke with Pat Sims and Rick, Dan, and it looks like the municipal authority is going to split that with us. And I think the other cost is in the 30-some, 40-some thousand, which they're willing to split. They're going to discuss it at their next meeting, is the access road from, when you come around the bend from the road department all the way to the sewage department. That's getting pretty rough, and for, the residents are using it. What we want to do is widen that as wide as we can, and then kind of put a fog line on one side for the pedestrians. So people walking, so we're gonna hopefully get that widened out as much as we can. And, we'll get that figured out and even discuss some speed bumps down there, because with that just clean blacktop, you get people walking bikes, and then you get people not paying attention. So that's another conversation, but so that'll clean up that area, it'll look good, and that river area is heavily traveled with walkers and young people and bikes. And so, Rick, thanks. Make sure you carry that torch for us in your municipal meetings. And
Okay.
Mr. Dilo, Pat liked it. Mr. Dilo did. He said he saw somebody get hung up there as well. So it's a safety issue for the borough and the municipal authority. So that's all I have on the paving. But we'll hopefully have next work session, because we're hoping to get this out to bid sometime, advertise and get it sometime in June, so we could get this done in September and October. That way we're not paving a week before Christmas and trying to pave when there's snow and everything else. So that's all I have on the paving.
Public safety, code enforcement, nothing.
We already talked about it.
Recreation?
I just have a few dates to let everybody be aware of them, so they know when we'll be closing the road. Thursday, May 15th is, the week of May 12th through the 16th is Police Week. On the 15th, in the evening, will be the candlelight vigil. So we'll be blocking the road around 7:30 at night from College Avenue down to Jervo, and either side of the park, so Corporation Turnpike, you can travel. There'll be like 100 some motorcycles coming in then police cars, and they do a candlelight vigil. The following morning, it'll be blocked in the same area from 9 to noon. But for the businesses, between College and Insurance, we'll allow people to go in there, so, because we don't want to slow down the businesses down there, from between College and Insurance. But they'll have to, when they leave, they'll have to just go down either direction and loop back out. Like I said, that's 9 to noon. And then May 26th is gonna be the Memorial Day Parade. And that'll be, the whole main street will be blocked. There'll be no parking from basically that morning until about noon. And then two other events, obviously Garrison Days is Saturday, I believe June 7th. And then Beaver County Boom will be on Saturday, June 28th. There will be a lot of traffic if you live on this end of town, because they have decided they're not doing the Veterans Bridge. It's all instead of being spread out like it was, it's all gonna be concentrated in that little area. It's just so you're aware, so that might probably be a little inconvenient for people, and the only way for you to get into Bridgewater is going to be Leopard Lane down in. If you go underneath the train bridge, the most you could do is go to Mario's lot and then loop around back under the bridge, that's it. So, those are all the most important dates coming up where you might be inconvenienced traffic wise or anything like that.
On recreation, special thanks to all the people, whoever was involved in getting those tires from below the log house. Maybe they could take the ones that are below Walt McDermott's house out too.
That's initially, when you brought that up last time, that's where I was saying it's tough to get a truck back. We got it that far, but there's, for some reason, we used to be able to go back there. I went as far as we could get back there with a truck, and that's about as far as we could get. They took 25 or 27 tires out. I could look at that again to see if we can get, but I know there's a bunch, I don't know about a bunch, but there's a good bit
There
there.
was at least 3 that I saw when you make that bend by, where Walt
Yeah.
McDermott lives,
Yeah.
John Wolpert's. You look down there and there's, there used to be a shopping cart down there too, but.
Yeah.
Is that where the tire swing was? We couldn't find his tire swing.
No,
Oh,
the tire swing is, yeah, it's on the arch of the bridge.
But Brent looked for it, Kenny
It's
looked
gotta
for
be
it, I
cut
looked for
down,
it.
right?
Maybe it got cut down.
Yeah.
I know John, is John
No,
or Rick here? They want to just walk down over the hill and just grab those tires. I told them if they did it.
if they did it and get them up, we'll be happy to
we'll-
take them
okay,
out.
I'll tell them.
Yeah, we'll figure it, we'll get them
John's
up.
funny, he's like, come on, Stutler, we'll go down, it'll be like we're working out.
Mhm. So you get poison ivy.
They did poison ivy, I didn't think of
Wear
that.
gloves.
Get my dogs. Yeah, Charlie's strong.
Anything else? Recreation? All right. Manager, secretary report.
Right, so, okay, I brought up Andy's things, I did have the tires on here, you're aware of that. Everybody's aware of Arbor Day this Saturday at 10 at the gazebo. The town yard sale is Saturday, May 3rd. So Saturday, May 3rd, town yard sale. The Riverside cleanup is May 10th. Riverside cleanup is May 10th. And then the Hillside, Medical Center side, Hillside is on the 17th. So May 3rd, following weekend is the 10th, which is going to be Riverside, and then the following, which is the 17th, so 3 weeks in a row. So if you don't get it out, take it across and dump it at the other side at your neighbors. That's the problem. People get stuff that they don't want from another town, they just drop it here, and nobody picks it up, and then we're stuck paying to get rid of our stuff.
That happened on our block last year. Somebody dropped
With the
some things off.
TVs
TVs.
Especially
What was it last year? There was some,
tires.
there was a couple different
Was-
things.
yeah,
that
I
went-
know.
Over by,
But I forget-
right by Crumb Run, somebody dropped all
Yeah.
those, they stacked up tires there,
Yeah, yeah.
so.
I thought there was a break. Because I was tired of being there.
So we covered that, so the paving update, we covered that. The newsletter, target date is going to be sometime next week. It's delayed by 3 weeks to a month, due to the staff working on right to knows and other things. So the newsletter, it's delayed by a few weeks, but it will be coming out. And looking at the proof, they did a really great job, Rebecca, working with Johanna. And what's nice is there's no ads. I mean, it's strictly information about the town, the community, the different groups and organizations. And it was a little bit less, since we're only gonna do 2 a year. It's gonna be a little bit less than what we were paying Pacer, and there was just a lot of the advertisements. It's gonna work out. I'm really pleased how it turned out. There's a lot of good information about the town that's in it. Update on our right to know from the same requester. The payment was made on an outstanding right to know. It also was hand delivered another right to know today. 15 for 25, so 15 submitted requests requesting 67 different types of documents. There's 4 submitted appeals. There's still 1 appeal pending in Harrisburg, so we'll keep council posted on that. I only have two topics, and it's not to turn into an argument because it does get old, but Margaret, if you need anything on the rental registration or you have questions, just reaching out to Martin and talking with Martin on it. Debbie's behind you. I mean, if you need to meet and you have questions about where the money's going and how much this, and like Martin goes out and does inspections, we'll be happy to sit with you if you have any questions on the rental registration, we'll be happy to answer them for you, that's all.
Well, Rick was the one who put me in touch with him, and it
Yeah,
worked
well,
out fine.
he is
answered-
the rental registration
Yeah.
officer.
He was
Yeah.
very helpful.
Yeah, he does, I talked to Martin, he wanted me to be aware of what was, you guys had a communication, but he just said that, the conversation was about cost and who does, like, Martin inspects it, gives Debbie could tell you the numbers in and out and what the costs are and where all the money goes.
That's not what it was about,
Okay,
but
that's all. And while we're on that, I feel, this is the last thing I'm bringing up, I feel that it's my obligation and responsibility to defend council and to defend the borough on the police end, but also on as the borough manager and set the record straight. Margaret, you're confiding in people that have relationships with the borough. You went to your Republican Party thing and you brought things up there, throwing the rest of council under the bus and misinformation. You were on council for 7 years and voted on 7 budgets consecutive. Didn't vote on the last one, which was fine, that's your decision. But then criticizing council, misleading the public, misleading comments, actions don't reflect the values and character of borough council. I mean, the stuff that I got relayed, I don't know if you said it or you didn't, you're the only one that does, but, throwing council under the bus for budgets, there's no transparency, and there's this, there's that, trying to get candidates endorsed. Maybe you got caught up in a moment, I don't know. But to say some of the stuff that got back to me, it's just, these people that are volunteers don't deserve to be discredited when you were part of these decisions for 7 years. So, if you said it, you said it. If you didn't, then I'm sorry if you didn't say it, but it's what got back to me. But it sounded like, we don't need Vanport Industry, we're subsidizing. That's your opinion. That is only your opinion, but you're calling the rest of these people and questioning their integrity on things when you've been part of this. Things went south, there was a tax increase. Okay, yeah, but it doesn't mean that they're bad people and that they don't know what they're doing. Again, I could beat this to death, I had to say that because it's been bothering me. And, it's just, I just don't feel it's right. The election can go how it goes, people get elected, but to question this council's integrity and stuff, it just doesn't sit well with me, so.
I never said you were horrible people. Just said I disagreed, that's all,
Okay.
and that's my right.
Absolutely. That's all I have.
All right, moving on. Mayor Hamilton.
Nothing yesterday, thank you, Mr. President.
Anything, police chief, engineer, president, no, I guess, the only thing that I wanted to bring up was there was someone on social media just basically saying that I don't know where the article came from, but the Beavers Business District is at risk and it was due to the tax increases. And that there was the article says that there was no meaningful discussion about the impact of raising taxes. Number one, that's not true. We talked about raising taxes ever since we started talking about the budget and the hillside fell in. We knew we were gonna have to raise taxes, and we talked about it at great lengths. Sometimes it was spirited discussion. And that's what happens when you have to raise taxes. But I think we're proving now why that was needed. But when people say that we're not transparent, we're not sharing the information, that's just simply not true. It's not true. And it's just a shame that, and I get it, people gotta run, they wanna get elected and things like that, and that's fine, you can do whatever you want. But at the end of the day, to say that we're not transparent is simply not true. It's not. And if it comes from inside a council member saying we're not being transparent, that's troubling. Because I never heard it brought up any other time during a meeting. But I do wanna add about the business district is the fact that we have one storefront open and it's gonna be occupied. Our business district is vibrant. All of our business fronts are filled. People every day walking through the business district during the day. It's a busy place.
And we all benefit from that.
Absolutely, 100%. So, trying to, I don't, like I said, I don't know where the article came from. I just thought it was disheartening, considering the fact that, one, it said we had no meaningful instruction, and two, that businesses were hurting because of it. And that's not the case, because we have the data to back it up. We don't have an empty storefront. Go across the river, go down to Bridgewater. And I'm not criticizing these towns, but they would love to be in the position, heck, they would love to have 50% of what we have in our business district. So that's unfortunate. But at the end of the day, I just wanted to bring that up because our business district is vibrant. They are profiting. We haven't had business owners come to us complaining about the tax increase. Yeah, everybody knows it was tough. We're all taxpayers, we know that. Our taxes increased too. We didn't get a special deal on that. But at the end of the day, you two, laid out what's happening in Q1, which looks tremendously promising. And I think Q2, 3 will, they'll be the same. So I'm encouraged by it, and I just wanted to say that, especially about the article. Like I said, I just thought it was unfortunate.
Council President, can I ask you a question?
You can ask me whatever you want.
When did you guys know about the first landslide? What year did you learn about the landslide, the first time it happened?
I have no idea what you're talking about. I only know one landslide.
Okay, because,
Don't quiz me.
okay, I'm just saying.
You just said you were gonna ask me one question.
Does the borough manager know the answer?
No.
Does the borough engineer who's not here, can you guys look into that? Because I believe it was 2021. So talking about transparency, the engineering report from 2021 said that we were notified by the railroad in 2021 about the landslide. You worked very, very hard. You can look at the meeting minutes that are on your website that say you guys worked really, really hard to work with the railroad. They're notoriously difficult to get any work done. They were the hang-up, but then it happened again because we weren't able to fix the initial landslide. A second one happened in February of 2024. So you could have budgeted in
That's not true.
2021,